What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com.
Here are my DFS picks for MLB Wednesday, June 23rd.
These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button
And hit that bell icon.
so you don't miss our new videos.
In this video, I'm going to go over my top DFS picks for today's MLB slate.
And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made.
Okay guys, we have a 7-game slate tonight, so let's take a look at the pitcher position. I'm just going to pay up here. I like Trevor Bauer with a 10% pitching advantage over the San Diego Padres. Trevor Bauer, he's only giving up a .444 OPS versus righties, and he's facing 5 righties here tonight. Now, the Padres have hit 26 of his last 91 pitches. That's a .286 batting average, and Trevor Bauer is $11,000 FanDuel salary, and he's $500 less on DraftKings. Projected at 31.2 fantasy points here tonight. His ERA is 2.45. Record is 7-5 on the season. Pitching an average of 106 pitches per game. So that's a ton of pitches. A lot of chances to rack up those fantasy points. And he's averaging 44 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 55, 31, and 34 fantasy points in the last 3 games. And Vegas thinks this is going to be a low-scoring game. 7.5 runs scored in this game. That's their over-under. So I like Trevor Bauer here versus the San Diego Padres. Okay, let's take a look at the catcher first base position. I like Gary Sanchez with a 31% batting advantage over Danny Duffy. Gary Sanchez is batting 9% better versus lefty pitchers, batting a .759 OPS versus lefties. And Danny Duffy is pitching 22% worse to righties as he does lefties. He pitches his worst ball versus righty batters, giving up a .733 OPS versus righties. And I like this pick because Gary Sanchez is 4 for 9. That's a .444 batting average and a 1.000 OPS versus Duffy. He's only $2,900 FanDuel salary, although he is $2,300 more on DraftKings, projected at 9.1 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 9 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 3, 19, and 22 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So I like Gary Sanchez here versus Danny Duffy. And another guy I like is Sean Murphy with a 49% batting advantage over a low salary pitcher, Mike Foltz. Sean Murphy, he's batting 22% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .851 OPS versus righties. And Mike Foltz, he pitches his worst ball versus righty batters, 27% worse than his other pitches, giving up a 1.624 OPS versus righties. There's no at-bats versus Foltz yet, and I like this pick because Sean Murphy is only $2,600 FanDuel salary. He's $1,400 more on DraftKings, projected at 12.7 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 9 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 25, 22, and 3 fantasy points in the last 3 games. And Vegas thinks this is going to be a high-scoring game, 9.5 runs scored in this game. That's their over-under. So I like Sean Murphy here versus Mike Foltz. Okay, let's take a look at the second base position. I like Max Muncy batting against Joe Musgrove. Max Muncy is batting a .786 OPS versus righties, and Joe Musgrove is giving up a .608 OPS versus lefties. So the splits don't look great, But the reason I like this pick is because Max Muncy is 5 for 9, batting a .556 batting average and a 1.470 OPS versus Musgrove. He's $3,500 FanDuel salary, and he's $2,100 more on DraftKings. Projected at 10.5 fantasy points here tonight. He's averaging 12 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 6, 22, and 3 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So I like Max Muncy here versus Joe Musgrove. Okay, let's take a look at the third base position. I like Joey Wendell with a 43% batting advantage over a low salary pitcher, Garrett Richards. Joey Wendell is batting 34% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .882 OPS versus righties, and Garrett Richards, he's giving up a .778 OPS versus lefties. There's no at-bats versus Richards yet, and Joey Wendell is only $3,000 FanDuel salary. He's $1,300 more on DraftKings, projected at 10.2 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 10 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 6, and 19 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So I like Joey Wendell here versus Garrett Richards.
Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all of our DFS tools for all sports. You can try the Position Optimizer, where you can see the top players ranked for each position. And we added a new Player Trends tool, where you can see the top salary differences between FanDuel and DraftKings. It's a really good tool to help you pick out value for the site that you're playing on. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups.
And I just caught this play here at the third base position. Take a look at Matt Chapman with a 29% batting advantage over that low salary pitcher, Mike Foltz. Matt Chapman, he bats a little bit better versus righty pitchers, batting a .741 OPS versus righties. And Mike Foltz, we know, throws his worst ball versus righty batters, giving up a 1.624 OPS versus righties. So it's always a good opportunity to stack those righty batters versus Mike Foltz. Now there's no at-bats versus Foltz yet, but Matt Chapman is $3,100 FanDuel salary and $1,500 more on DraftKings. Projected at 14.1 fantasy points here tonight. That projection is awfully high, but he's averaged 9 fantasy points per game on the season, but he scored 29, 12, and 19 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So he has a favorable matchup here. He's been on fire, so I like Matt Chapman here versus Mike Foltz. Okay, let's take a look at the shortstop position. We gave this pick to you yesterday. This was our value play of the day, and he worked out very well, and I'm going to give you him again here tonight. I like Elvis Andreas with a 56% batting advantage over that same low salary pitcher, Mike Foltz. Elvis Andreas, he bats 29% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .642 OPS versus righties. And we know Mike Foltz throws his worst ball versus righty batters, giving up a 1.624 OPS versus righties. Now, Elvis Andreas is 0 for 1 versus Foltz, but he's only $2,000 FanDuel salary, and he's $1,100 more on DraftKings. Projected at 11.5 fantasy points here tonight. He's only averaged 6 fantasy points per game on the season, but he did score 22 fantasy points last night. So I think he's in another good spot here tonight, just super low salary. And we know Vegas thinks there's going to be 9.5 runs scored in this game. That's their over-under. So I really like this righty batter stack versus Mike Foltz. So I like Elvis Andreas here versus Mike Foltz. Okay, moving on to the outfield position. I like Michael Brantley. We gave this pick yesterday. Didn't work out so well. but he's in a great spot again here tonight with a 61% batting advantage over a low salary pitcher, Thomas Eshelman. Michael Brantley, he's batting 29% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .978 OPS versus righties. And Thomas Eshelman, he's throwing 33% worse to lefties as he does righties, giving up a .900 OPS versus lefties. There's no at-bats versus Eshelman yet, and Michael Brantley is $3,500 FanDuel salary, and he's only $600 more on DraftKings. So I like that price on both sites, but I especially like that DraftKings price. And he's projected at 10.9 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 11 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 6, 35, and 22 fantasy points in the last 3 games. And Vegas thinks there's going to be 10 runs scored in this game, so that's their over-under. Just a great spot for Michael Brantley here tonight. So I like Michael Brantley here versus Thomas Eshelman. And now here's somewhat of a value play for you. I like Hunter Renfro with a 53% batting advantage over Rich Hill. Hunter Renfro is batting 33% better versus lefty pitchers, batting a .896 OPS versus lefties. Now, Rich Hill does throw 20% worse to righties as he does lefties, but he is still only giving up a .583 OPS versus righties. But the reason that I like this pick is because Hunter Renfro is 7 for 21, batting a .333 batting average and a 1.031 OPS versus Hill, and 2 of those 7 hits are for home runs. And he's only $2,700 FanDuel salary. He's only $800 more on DraftKings. Projected at 9 fantasy points here tonight. He's averaging 9 fantasy points per game on the season, and he scored 32 and 9 fantasy points in his last 2 games. So I like Hunter Renfro here versus Rich Hill.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smickety smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NBA slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.